Board on this computer. All right. Start this in 3, 2. Hello and welcome to Eternal Durdles. I'm your host, Zach Clark, and with me as always, Phil Bleckman. Phil, how's it going, man?
Bro, what's up, bro? You ready to talk about how every card just works egregiously with fetch lands? Let's go.
Yes. So yeah, this is the Dominaria United Commander set, and we also have a couple of the legends that they kind of like rethought out in here as well. But this will give us a bit of a couple more cards to talk about from that set, and just talk about the relevance and legacy. We've got 11 cards, one honorable mention, and then 10 in no particular order. So I guess let's get to it, huh?
Yeah, let's get into it.
All right. So for our honorable mention, we have Greensleeves Maro Sorcerer. Greensleeves Maro Sorcerer is a 5-mana XX with protection from planeswalkers and from wizards. Its power toughness is equal to the number of land you control. Then it has landfall. Create a 3/3 green badger token.
So let me just point out that they didn't write landfall on here, which is extremely triggering.
Of course.
just write landfall. They have that mechanic. I don't understand.
So
but,
yeah.
So now that with protection from wizards, so WotC can never errata this card.
Yeah, no, they're done. That's it. That can't even ban
it's
it.
Over. They can't do anything.
Can't ban it.
Card.
Like it's over.
It's weird to mess themselves up like that, but yeah.
But no, so the reason why I this is, like I said, an honorable mention. It's barely playable. But the fact that we're getting that reprint of Liliana means that there may be more Liliana decks popping up in your local meta. Just because it's it's slightly more affordable than it was before, and there are going to be some decks that are out there playing that. So this is a great like top end inclusion to like a Nick Fit deck or something like that, where you create that Badger every turn. They can't like play Liliana and kill your Maro. Because it's like that's the only planeswalker that could actually kill the Maro Sorcerer is something that targets a player and makes you sacrifice it. So this is an interesting card, and like you've got Veteran Explorer and stuff like that like could triple trigger in a turn.
Yeah, once again, like it's landfall, so fetch land. So every fetch land is just 6 power on the table. So
yeah, amazing.
Like, this feels very in the Titania space to me.
Yeah,
and it would just I in my mind it would just occupy that slot. It's like it doesn't give you the immediate value of recurring a land, and a 5/3 versus a 3/3. It's like, okay, it's going to die to the same things. The difference though is that like rather than needing a land to die to get a trigger, it just happens when they land ETBs. So it's pro and con. It really is dependent on if you think you're going to run into like if your meta is just like mono Teferi and you want a fat green thing that Teferi can't touch, like, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I don't think it's going to be breaking any tables. It's just another like
another
dumb green idiot
that
it works
big green, cool. Big green idiot.
Yeah. And also like pro wizards are like, oh man, you can't Venser this. Sheesh. Can't Venser this Greensleeves.
Yeah.
Don't even try it. Don't even try it.
All right, so let's talk about our next card that technically I want to say technically, Shapeshifter is the one that is all creatures, right?
Or no, that's Changeling.
That's Changeling. Okay, never mind. So I take
Shapeshifter is just a creature type.
I take what I said back. So we've got the ever-changing apostrophe Dane.
Yeah, so it's really from Half Dane, right?
Yeah.
Which was a Legends card.
So this is the full Dane.
It's a 3/3 for Esper mana, and so it's 3 mana, and it says it's a legendary creature shapeshifter. 1, sacrifice another creature. The ever-changing Dane becomes a copy of the sacrificed creature, except it has this ability.
Yeah.
So this is like a fat Lazav.
Yeah, and you can play like if you have 2 mana. If you have 2 mana, you can play your Dreadnought, sack it before the sacrifice trigger the Dreadnought goes through, and
this will become a 12/12 trampler.
Yeah, and it's a 12/12 trampler, which is
that also has the ability to sacrifice other creatures. So
and it's where that's where you want the Dreadnought for Lazav, and you can put Lazav in play and still get a Dreadnought out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think this is actually going to show up on any legacy tables because it's mana gated.
Yeah.
Like the Lazav is already pretty fringy, but the fact that you can like 4/3 mana to get the ever-changing Dane. If you have the Dreadnought in your yard, which you could play a turn earlier or do other things to get it into your yard, this specifically needs the Dreadnought to be on the table with 2 mana.
Yes.
for you to sacrifice it to actually copy it, where Lazav can go in stages. So I don't think this is going to see any play. But the obvious thing to me that cards, the effect that a card would need to actually make it into Legacy, either is it's a 1-mana or 2-mana creature with a cheap activated ability, or the ability has to be mana. It has to cost no mana. So if this just said sacrifice a creature, then there's a bunch of like combo shenanigans probably that you could do with triggers on a stack.
Yeah.
But because it's mana gated, it's just never actually going to get there. Like anytime something is mana gated, it's just costed out of Legacy, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I just like that, like, this goes, it gets you a little bit closer to playing like an Esper style, like black to basics, like Dreadnought style deck that I think is not positioned well right now. But we've got there's so many cards coming into the format over the next like 2 months that I think that it's just interesting to look at these cards and think of ways to use them. And then when you actually do see them, inevitably, like, somebody's going to like be that guy who plays at your local and is like, I'm trying this deck. How to play around them.
If you wanted to be the Dreadnought player, there's just so many other like cheaper options than this. So like between Stifle and Dress Down, and then if you move into another color, you get Lazav. But also in the same color, you now have Slip Out the Back, which brings your Dreadnought back as a 13/13.
Yep.
So and then Slip Out the Back can also function as a removal spell for a turn, because you can phase your opponent's creature out and then kill them on a swings before they get their creature back. So all of those cards, I feel like you would lean towards first because they're cheaper in one color. In Lazav's case, only stretching into another color for to play Dreadnought, whereas this would just need an entire overhaul. It just opens up a bunch of weaknesses. I just don't think we're ever going to see it.
Yeah. All right.
Outside of like your fun FNMs, you like?
Yeah, I think the thing. Yeah, you might see it in FNM or something like that. But it's out there. It's an option. Let's talk about Hazezon, Shaper of Sand. This is Naya for a 3/3. You got a white, green, and red for a 3/3 with Desert Walk. But you can play desert lands from your graveyard, and whenever a desert enters the battlefield under your control, create 2 Naya Sand Warrior creatures.
So just wait until they print the desert fetch land.
Yeah,
I think this to me, its only weakness is that it's in a color combination that just has never been playable in Legacy.
Yes.
But the effect of this card is actually really good. We've seen Ramunap Excavator be playable. The thing is that it's playable because it can recur shit like Wasteland.
Yeah.
And fetch lands, obviously, where this can only recur deserts.
Unfortunately, right now, also on the desert level, is like I don't see us going back to desert land anytime soon. Like, we're not going to like an Arabian Nights style thing in the near future. Although I could be wrong. That they printed this card, right? It's in standard. It's easily possible.
It's not standard. This is wait. This is Commander product.
This is Commander. You're not wrong. But so the Brothers War is coming up, and there could be plenty of lands that they decide to make deserts in that are slightly closer to Legacy playable.
I think that's where it is, right? Like deserts, they can kind of just throw deserts anytime they feel like it's flavorfully there. Yeah. Like it's kind of like gates. It doesn't necessarily need to have gate mechanic attached to it. They just like for limited purposes, they can just make like a desert sub theme the same way that there's a gate sub theme.
Yeah,
and it could pop up anytime. Like Hazezon's power level can only ever go up because they can only ever print more deserts, right? So like
exactly,
if they ever print a desert that sacks itself on the cheap, like right now you have one that's just a Tormod's Crypt. Like you have that.
Yeah, you got like Ramunap Ruins. It does 2 damage. It's like 5 total mana.
5 mana. You're never getting that. But there's also
there's a mill one.
There's the manland that comes in as a 3/4 if you exile a land, and that's a cheap one. So you could theoretically keep recurring threats and use your fetches to recur that. There's also a green sun target. Like there's a lot that this card offers, particularly because if you're in the desert deck, every desert making 2 1/1s is that. I mean. That's a really powerful pyromancer. Yeah. Like I don't think the tools are there for this card, but I think in the future, if they ever like all this needs is like the powerful desert that you'd want to recur. The second that you have a desert worth recurring, this could just be an easy one of in a Green Sun Zenith deck that opts into that package. You know?
Well, we could talk about a lot of I guess none of those deserts are like pay a life to do a thing, right? I think
as
they're
far as
all
I know,
like
the only
pay
playable desert,
mana, and then the pay the life part is making the mana from them, so that's not as good.
Yeah, the only time I've ever seen a desert in play is when like, we saw the Tormod's Crypt Desert as a means to, instead of like instead of like decks that aren't crop rotting, may have that as a means to do it, because an activated ability to threaten is better than a bog, but it's very rare and it doesn't show up that often, and I don't think it's definitely not worth it to put this card in your deck.
All right, so let's talk about what I was alluding to was Verrak, the Warped Sengir, for 1, a black and a white. It's a legendary vampire with flying, death touch, and lifelink. And it says whenever you activate an ability that isn't a mana ability, if life was paid to activate it, you may pay that much life again. If you do, copy that ability and you may choose new targets.
I hate this card so much. Not that it's doing anything wrong. It's just like, use any amount of words to say fetch lands without saying fetch lands.
Yeah,
it's just like whenever you activate an ability that isn't a mana ability, if life was spent to activate it, you may pay that much life again. If you do copy that, it's like, oh, what's an activated ability that isn't a mana ability that costs life that everybody plays all the time?
My question is
just so egregious in that.
If you named every card on here that it could be, would it be the same number of letters? Like
whenever you activate an ability that isn't a mana ability,
but
it's just like name. I feel like you have to reach. Like the only thing that everybody plays with this works with is fetch lands, so you can double up your fetch lands. So it's like
the best part is Necropotence costs 0 mana. It could be done anyhow. So like you'd still be paying 1 life to draw 1 card, but now you're paying 2 life to draw 2 cards.
I love vampires. I love the gimmick. I just hate that it's just so glaring to me that they're like, well, this is good with fetch lands and then other stuff too.
I think thus far though, this is the card that has the most legs for Legacy that we've talked about.
No, it's 3 mana.
No,
it's 3 mana. It does nothing on its own.
About these cards. You think what Greensleeves is a more Legacy playable card than Warped Sengir? Okay, fair enough.
I think Greensleeves actually has a competitive slot to vie for and like the random decks between Titania and it, whereas nobody's paying 3 mana for a 2/2 that doesn't do anything by itself.
Yeah, I guess nobody's doing that. I guess that's fair. You need to play us on turn 4 so that you can hit your like 6 mana.
Yeah, you can pay 2 life to tutor up 2 lands,
double
and then cool, you have this card in your deck. Like,
all right, so let's move on to a Moria Urborg Haunt. That is 2 and a black for a legendary creature, Spirit Wizard, Menace. It's a 3/2. Whenever Moria Urborg Haunt deals combat damage to a player, return to the battlefield target creature that was put into the battlefield from there this turn. I only bring this card up for Nate because this just feels like some like aristocrat shenanigans that you can get into.
It just costs like it's so much work, dude. If we're not playing the Mardu Jansen from D&D or whatever that card was, that just stacks artifacts and makes tokens, and Jansen, what's that card's name?
I think it's Jens Jansen.
I don't know. Jansen. If we aren't even looking at Jansen that does a bunch of shit by himself with like other cards that would already be in your deck, this just requires so much work. Like it gives you nothing when you ETB. You already have to have a sack outlet on the table. It's got to deal combat damage to the player. It doesn't protect it, do anything. It's just so many hoops.
Jansen, Chaos Crafter is the name of that card.
Just go play Jansen. Play some Jansen.
All right, let's move on to. I'm gonna have trouble with this one. Rosnakht.
I was going to go with Rosnakht.
Heir to Rohgahh. Rosnakht. Heir to Rohgahh.
Rosnakht. Yeah.
Freaking kobold. So this is a 1 mana red creature. That has it's a kobold that has battle cry, and then it has heroic. Now I don't know if heroic's good. I know heroic's bad. Actually, let's just put it out there.
Here's a quick question. Why is battle cry written out and heroic is written out in this commander product and landfall is not?
Yep. It's a great question. On top of that, it doesn't explain what heroic is. It just says heroic and then explains the text of heroic after the dash.
What's the difference between a keyword and a mechanic?
Yeah.
So, but I get that. Watson gets that. But landfalls
here's my
is not
thing. Have we
land.
ever
Can't have landfalls.
minus
Can't do
Rugrak?
it.
We've never had a 1 mana. We've had one less than 1 mana, but a 1 mana red legend.
Oh, there's a couple of
So
1 mana red legends floating around these days.
are there? Okay, it's been a minute since I thought. Yeah. Oh, that's right, Ragavan. So anyhow, this is obviously like it's good in a situation where you want to be attacking, but like I can't like think. I just like you see a 1 mana legend and you have to think about it for a second. And Battle Cry can be a very powerful ability. I just don't think we're going to see like mono red heroic take over the tables at your local.
No, I think the heroic thing is nonsense. I think the thing that this is a 1 mana 0/1 Battle Cry, which is what's that artifact that was an affinity that has the exact same thing?
Yeah. Something mirror.
No, it's not a mirror. It's
Screecher battle guy.
What if you want to try and find it, we'll bring it up. But like the affinity deck that used to play a 1 mana 0/1 with Battle Cry for the deck that goes wide. So I remember when the legendary dog with partner, that every time a legendary permanent ETBs, it gets a +1/+1 counter. That could get big very fast. Like just like the aggro
Signal
legends
pest.
deck.
It's
Signal pest. This is a signal pest. So for the aggro legends deck, that deck hits very hard, but it just doesn't have any card advantage, so it gasses out really quickly. But the like Boros Legends aggro deck, where it just hits hard, like it's just attacking the format by like, okay, I'm gonna put you dead on turn 3 on a goldfish that's just attacking your life total. This, I imagine, would just go into that as more legends, like cheap legends that get Battle Cry. Because if you think like you go turn 1, Yamamoro, I think, or whatever the name of the dog is, and then this plus another thing, you attack with the dog for 3, untap, and now you're threatening with any amount of other legends on the table. If you have this plus the other ones, it's like, okay, we're attacking for whatever the power of the second creature is, +1, at least 4 power on the dog, on across bodies, with mana up, like that. There's a really aggressive start now that you have all these legends, and that deck is a build around of the dog. So you need every single card in your deck to be a legend to really pay it off. So if you play all the legend lands and all the legend in red and white, and you have that draw between this, if you think like the same way that Affinity plays out, it would play out similarly, and except like instead of playing dopey artifacts, you play legendary creatures that have relevant text, but you exchange soul lands for ability lands. So like you would max out Karakas, you'd probably play like all the Sekenzins and Ganjos, so you'd be offsetting those things. But also, if you have all these 1 mana and cheap spells, you wouldn't need to move into soul lands the same way that you need for the artifacts.
Exactly. Okay.
Is it good? No, but that's where it would live.
So for continuing on the 1 mana theme, we have a 1 mana artifact, Gerrad's Hourglass Pendant. It's legendary. It has flash. If a player would begin an extra turn, that player skips that turn instead. The relevant text here is 4 mana and tap it, exile the pendant, return to the battlefield, tapped all artifact, creature, enchantment, and land cards that went put to your graveyard from the battlefield this turn. I mentioned this card because it is a 1 mana artifact, and we live in a world where Urza's Saga exists. I guess the musical question here is this card worth getting with Urza's Saga in an 8-cast deck? I think no.
No, I think definitely not. Too expensive. This is very geared toward EDH for a player it's extra turn hate. Obviously,
we got a guy in our group.
we can go on from this one. 4 mana to tap, exile it to return all the things for when somebody wipes your board. Like that is way more prominent in EDH. Like nobody's gonna have this in their deck with 4 mana up to save.
How often are board wipes even happening in this format? Like in a situation where like you've got 4 mana open and you're just like waiting for your opponent to do the thing, and they're like, I guess I just lose anyhow.
Unless there's some card that makes it so any of the there's some kind of vault key deck in Legacy that this can be a sideboard card against, as just like extra turns can't be taken.
I mean, that said, this is a fine card to like add to your 50 5 other cards that aren't
this is the type of card that like this is your card that if you ever play an Urza Saga deck, you would definitely have one in vintage, if you are targeting a meta where there's a deck, there's a prominent play deck that takes extra turns, or it just takes infinite turns as his win condition.
Yeah,
to shut that off, the same way that you play the with the thing that shuffles like cards from the graveyard back into their deck to fuck up Doomsday. You know, it's similar to that, right? You play that card solely for Doomsday. You play this solely for the extra turns deck.
All right, so on the level of we're tying each of these into each other somehow. On level of legendary artifacts, we have the Mana Rig. It's a 3-mana artifact that says whenever you cast a multicolored spell, create a tapped Power Stone, which is just a mana rock. And then it says XXX, so 3 times X. Look at the top and tap it. Look at the top cards of your library. Put 2 of them onto the into your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your library in random order.
I don't think this is playable. What do you think?
You don't think it's so? I don't know, man. Like I see this and I look at a card. I look at this card and I think, huh, like this is a late game draw engine. Now,
so maybe you could talk me into this being something that your big mana Cloud Post deck wants.
Well, so not Cloud Post because you're producing colorless mana like a lot for it. I'm saying you want to be getting the value out of the Power Stones to then be able to make the Mana Rig, like basically like continue to draw into other cards off the Mana Rig. So this is a deck like if we get to a point where we're like, okay, we have like cards like Expressive Iteration and Codal and stuff like that, and you're basically able to get, you know, like free cards every couple of turns. Like this card snowballs after a minute.
Yeah, I maybe you're right. I mean, I struggle to see the world where the multicolored decks would want this as opposed to like any of the other multicolored spells that draw cards immediately or give you value immediately without needing to sink mana. But, you know, if this is just a 3-mana rock that's going to dig through time you every turn off of when you're a big mana deck just to find your threats, like I could see that world. I could live in that world.
If you're getting to a point where you can activate this for 6, look, I mean, that's a whole different game, obviously. Like it's a legacy game that's gone on for too long, in my opinion. But there are other cards now that are making a lot of mana that like specifically our next card that I think
just to be clear, 6 mana means that if you're sinking X is 2,
X is 2, you're getting the top 2 cards.
So it's a 6 mana divination after you've already put 3 mana into this card. It's just too expensive. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is a lot. Now keep in mind that some of that mana will be free because of your Power Stone tokens.
Assuming that you've made any.
Of course. All right, so let's go to the next card because that card is just something to look at and be like, is that worth doing? This next card I think actually has a home. It is another legendary artifact. This one's red. It's called the Reaver Cleaver. For 2 and a red, we have a legendary artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 and trample. Whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, create that many treasure tokens. Equip 3. I think that this is a card that could be slotted into the red deck if you want to eschew the planeswalkers and you want to go more with like Rabble Master and the other like goblin guys. The other goblin guy we talked about in the last show as well. Like I think this card has the ability to like get you way ahead on mana when you're already like stopping them from doing stuff and you're going further into that plan.
I'm gonna let you do that.
Yeah, I don't like these decks, and I don't know if this is the best thing you can be doing, but it is another option.
It sure is. If this ever shows up across the table from me, I'm gonna be like, I'm sitting at the wrong table.
Yep, you have lost round 1. Okay, then we're gonna go into I would consider these next 2 cards our top 2, like are really playable. Like these cards you're probably gonna see. One is Tiller Engine. That is a 2-mana creature artifact construct. Whenever a land enters the battlefield, tapped and under your control, choose 1. Untap that land, or tap a target non-land permanent an opponent controls.
I mean, it's Magus of the Amulet of Vigor, and there is no Amulet of Vigor deck in Legacy because Wasteland exists. So,
well, here's the thing:
is 8
is you look at what's called Cloud Post decks, like 8 Post. I think 8 Post would be happy with this card because it's relevant all the time. You know, like no matter what you're playing, you're gonna be like, oh, I'll throw that in and I'll tap your guy, or you know, like, or I'll tap this. You know, you're gonna be able to start getting to a point where your opponent can't counter your giant spells that you're gonna be casting because you're like, okay, and then I'll go to combat. Your mana drains, and then I'll cast something.
This format's a free counterspell format.
It's true.
Tapping non-land permanents, it doesn't affect that. I think like I think the ladder ability is if you're ahead and you get to stay ahead because you can tap down blockers. Cool. Or you can, if you have any amount of ways to put lands on your opponent's field, you can blank combat steps. But otherwise, you're not putting this card in your deck if you're not untapping lands. Like if that untap land clause isn't the boon of this card.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is. I apologize for giving more weight to the second ability. It's certainly the untapped land part is the bigger part. This is another candelabra in your deck. You know, like it basically allows you to get a couple extra mana in the decks that like want this ability.
I mean, if there ever was, you know, an Amulet of Vigor Cloud Post deck, like if that was ever a thing to be had, now that there's 8 of the effect, it's like, okay, maybe there's something new there. I don't know if that deck has space, because I imagine that if you are doing that, you would want things on the cheaper end in the early turns as you cast this. Because like, let's say, you know, if you go turn 1 tapped land, that's a problem, right? But if you go turn 1 forest, cast Amulet, turn 2 post, untap, you have 2 mana, cast Tiller, then untap, cast another post, untap. Now you have what?
5 mana.
You have more than that because you get triggers. So you untap, make 2 mana, untap it again. So you would have 2, 4, 6, 7 mana on turn 3.
Yeah,
but wild. You would also have no cards in your hand.
Well, I think that this card has its uses. I just don't know those decks well enough to say like what is going on. And it seems like something that like, look, we're not going to see like a Gates deck come out. You know, like that's
also that's the other thing too. Yeah, we're not going to see the Gates deck. What's the non-cloud post? The one that gains life. The other post.
Oh, Glimmer Post? No.
Whatever the other post is.
Glimmer Post.
Is it Glimmer Post?
I think it is Glimmer Post, yeah.
So the other post, the one that gains life, that one comes into play untapped, right? So
no, I think it also comes into play tapped.
Okay, you can tell we're not Cloud Post aficionados.
Yeah, I'm not.
If the Cloud Post decks exist, it would be an Amulet of Vigor. This is Amulet of Vigor 5 through 8. Best of luck to you, Eldrazi players that always destroy my soul.
Glimmer Post. No, it does come into play untapped.
Yeah, so you can cast if you play Glimmer Post turn 1, cast Amulet. Cloud Post on 2, untap. You now have 3 mana ready. You can cast Tiller plus something else if you wanted.
Well, also you've got
I'm sorry, no, you have more than that. You have 5 mana on turn 2.
You got Vesuva that comes into play tapped.
Okay. Now we're talking. If you have Glimmer Post on 1, cast Amulet, Cloud Post, untap, that gives you. No, that would still only give you 3 mana.
That's 3, and then you go to the next turn, and you're like, okay, I'll play a Vesuva, untap it. That's what, 7 mana?
That would be 7. Yes, you
on
cast
turn
Karn.
3.
So you're playing Tron.
Yeah, you're playing Tron.
Yes.
Is it a better version of Tron? Maybe.
I mean, I'll definitely never beat it. So
yeah, there's no way for your slow ass deck to beat that. All right, we're getting to the number one, in my opinion, number 1 card from this commander set is Emperor Mihail II, 3/3 for 3. That's 2 blue and a colorless Merfolk Noble Legend. You can look at the top of your library at any time. You can cast Merfolk spells from the top of your library. If you cast a Merfolk spell, you can pay 1. If you do, you get a 1/1 blue Merfolk creature token.
Everybody's been talking that this is the card that you can play with Thought Lash, so you can get to your Thassa's Oracle, because you can cast the Thassa's Oracle from the top of your deck, and then with the trigger on the stack, exile the rest of your deck.
Okay.
And then I'm thinking to myself, everybody's like, yeah, this is you put it in with your Thought Lash combo deck, and then it's another way that you can combo with the Thought Lash. I'm like, fam, you were already there.
Yeah, you're jumping there. You're jumping.
You have
you're
the Thought
jumping
Lash
through
on the
too many
table.
hoops.
You're already there.
Yeah. I think in that scenario, you're jumping through too many hoops. What you want to be doing is attacking with this. This is just like the top end of your Merfolk deck. You throw 2 of these into your Merfolk deck. You've got 4 True Names, 2 of these, and everything else is a 2 mana Lord. And you just run Rushak on people, man. Like you've got, you can play the Tide Shaper, and you can even play the Dockside guy, and you can make the deck go long if you want to.
So you have Hexcatcher now in the format that wants you to go wide because you want to be able to counter all their spells.
It's great. Like you can pay one to sacrifice a Merfolk and counter spells. Yeah,
this is actually a token generator for Merfolk, which is something that they want. Guess the only other Merfolk token generator that isn't like 4 mana. There's one other 3 mana Merfolk.
It's an enchantment
token generator,
right? Yeah,
it is not. No.
Oh. Well, there is
an enchantment for 3 mana that makes 2/1/1s, or 4 mana that makes 2/1/1s, and then every time you cast it, you make another 1/1. But that's too expensive.
Yeah.
Anyhow,
I think and you can vial this in where you can't vial that in. You know,
from original Zendikar, there is a card called something Lore Master or something. It's a 2/2 Merfolk that says whenever you counter a spell, make a 1/1 Merfolk. But I think it's mana gated.
Put that up. We'll put that up here.
If you tap 7 Merfolk, you can counter a spell.
Yeah,
it's very cute, but it's the only.
Oh yeah, that's right. So, I remember seeing that's actually spiked recently. I think because everyone's like,
because everybody
all
thought,
these
oh,
people are like, hey, look, a legendary Merfolk. Let me make a Merfolk commander deck.
Promise all of you, it's not the thing.
No,
this one.
It might be a commander. Who knows?
This is interesting because it actually does. This is potential card advantage because you can look at the top. You can cast spells from the top of your deck.
Yeah, if you're playing a Merfolk deck, you're gonna be casting Merfolk spells.
You're gonna be casting those Merfolk, bro.
Yeah, I like this card a lot. I think this moves Merfolk to slightly more playable. You're more likely to see a Merfolk deck, especially because it's a relatively cheap deck to make, and it's gotten a lot of tools over the past 2 months. You know.
Also, this card also incentivizes you to play 1 mana Merfolk. Because you want to cast it for 1 mana and pay 1 mana and make a token.
Yep, and you're not casting them off of your vial, so you're not going to be able to get them off your vial.
Yeah, fuck vial. Get vial out of here. Get that card out.
You still want vial, I think.
Anyhow,
you
want to cast Merfolk.
Anyhow, that's what I've got. Those are the cards from Dominaria, the Commander set from Dominaria United. If you have some picks, please share them in the comment section. Tweet us. The tweet stuff is all in the podcast. You can see that. You can check out our decks over at MoxField.com. Do you know about MoxField.com?
I've heard of it. Yeah, can you remind me what it is?
Hell yeah. MoxField.com is an amazing deck building website. It's easily one of the most visually usable deck building websites out there. It's great for Commander. It's great for Legacy, which we're playing. It supports pre-modern, vintage, every decent format that you can think about playing. It's on there. So if you're out there building pre-modern decks, you should be using MoxField to share those decks. And I think that's it for us this week. We'll be back next week with the cards that we like from the 40K set, and I'm very excited.
Oh man, the 40K set, bro! Yeah. Wow, right. Triumph of St. Catherine! Wow.
All right. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next week. Hey, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Check out this other video. You'll probably like it.